Yesterday we had Marty Burlsworth on to talk about the legacy of Brandon Burlsworth and also to get the word out about the Brandon Burlsworth virtual football camps. They started yesterday at 5:30 in the afternoon. Many former Razorbacks are helping out, including our current guest, DeAndre Berry, former Razorback defensive back and teammate of Brandon Burlsworth at the University of Arkansas, is joining us on halftime right now. DeAndre, really appreciate your time today. How are you?
How's it going?
Doing good. Well, we're okay. Things are a little bit crazy these days, as you obviously know, but that's something we'll get into in a moment.
Hold on one second. I can barely hear you.
Is that any better there?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you now. DeAndre. We got you.
Great.
All right. So how'd the first day go yesterday? What is it like trying to teach a football camp virtually over, I guess it was Facebook Live? What's that like?
Man, it was a surreal moment, man. I'm not a big kind of social media guy in terms of making videos. So while making the video, it was just a little kind of unreal given the circumstance that we were in. But, man, once you get into the drills and you get going, it was actually it was really fun. It's just almost like a game. Once you get going and you get kind of lathered up, man, you get dialed in and you do the best you can.
So how does it work for you? Are you doing your part of these camps at home? Is there a central location? And how do you know when it's your time to go and what it is you're going to do?
Well, the way that we set it up, and I think Marty and those guys did a really great job. They kind of gave us a criteria to go off, and you did it tentatively around at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock hour, just to make sure that you're getting the same lighting and. You just follow the regiment in terms of your drill. So if you were a DB, you went over your DB drills, kind of in that segment of time, and so on and so forth. I used the field probably a stone's throw from my house. Okay. So he made it extremely convenient for us, and it was. I think it went together seamlessly.
And one of the things about teaching kids in a camp setting where you're with them on the field is that there's that opportunity for give and take, conversation, question and answer, that kind of stuff. And I wonder if virtually, because it's a broadcast that's being done, if there is that opportunity for that give or take or any sort of conversation or questions from the participants in the camp, or are they strictly watching the broadcast and trying to listen and mimic?
From my understanding, I feel like they were strictly watching the broadcast and trying to listen and mimic. And to speak to some of those intangibles that you would lose kind of real time, once you get going, you think back to how your coaches used to talk to you, how you would inspire someone during that time. And so I think it was up to the instructors to really kind of incite that inspiration, incite those intangibles that you would feel that need to be conveyed during that time. You would speak to that as you were going through the drill, things like finish,
okay.
Really overemphasize the movement of your hip, etc. You kind of go into that coaching mode real time. So I think we kind of offered that perspective as we got into the drills.
Okay, so there's a word you just used that to me, in my understanding about Brandon Burlsworth, he was all about, and that's intangibles. The things that you can't measure, strength, leaping ability, size, speed, anything like that. You cannot measure somebody's heart, but you can certainly tell when someone goes from an unrecruited walk-on to All-America third-round NFL pick, filled with intangibles. Is that what Brandon meant to you, or was it something else?
Man, without a doubt. I mean, it almost, and you don't say this about a lot of people, but it almost goes without question when you mention Brandon Burlsworth, the hard work component, the component of doing everything right when no one's looking. Man, you just can't say that about a lot of people, and that's what Brandon meant to me. And when I was here during the Brandon Burlsworth era, I was a young guy, and I came on board, and it was a guy who really didn't say enough vocally. He didn't say a lot vocally. But, man, when he spoke, you listened. And more importantly, you kind of watched him as you were walking off the field as a rookie, and you see this guy who's very highly touted, doing drills, doing extra, staying after, talking to the coaches, soaking everything up like a sponge, as if he was just as young as I was. And you saw that, and he really didn't have to say a lot, but you saw that a lot about him. And, man, it was infectious. It truly was.
Speaking to DeAndre Berry here on Halftime, DeAndre, what was your first memory or first encounter with Brandon Burlsworth?
Man, sitting in his locker. He was sitting in that locker, man, and now, it's a new facility. Everything's gone. It was after practice. He's sitting in that locker, just a door of a man just covering up the whole thing. And then I'm coming by a little DB, man, and dude, he just stuck his hand out, and he was like, "Welcome aboard." Man, I'll never forget that, because you're just soaking it all in. You're trying to be what you know as one of the big guns on campus coming in as a freshman, just trying to hold your own. But man, guys are just so imposing. It's hard to do. And for him to just kind of extend a hand and just, welcome me aboard and really not say much else after, told you, man, this guy holds his own. He know where he stands in terms of a leader, and there's not a lot that need to be said. That went a long way, and then that's kind of one of the guys you kind of eye, when you're trying to learn your route or your way, as you go through the same endeavors that he did.
Sounds like, and it almost, with you leading this camp or being a part of this, with everything going on right now, is that probably one of the biggest areas that you're trying to push this down with high school kids? And if you, once they get into college, just like the leadership aspect, and you hear this every time with Brandon Burlsworth, just the leadership, and you just touched on it too. As a young player yourself, when you first met him, I mean, he stuck his hand out, he introduced himself. I mean, is that probably the best trait of Brandon Burlsworth that you're trying to pass down to these younger athletes?
Without a doubt. I think, man, he embodied, I think, more than you would think. Brandon Burlsworth was a guy, as you guys will know, coming from Harrison, Arkansas. It's just you gain so much perspective from people and cultures that you never know that you would have encountered. And I think I learned a lot from him, and I would hope that he would have learned a lot culturally from different guys on his team and teams, and you saw it. Man, he always used leadership, perspective, and just overall love and compassion that he had. But at the same time, man, he put you in the dirt. It was weird. The guy showed as much love, as compassion as you would want. Huge Christian guy, but at the same time, man, he put you in the dirt. And I think that helped me, kind of take a look at, the background of a person and understand that there's a different avenue. And this guy, he'll break his neck for you,
DeAndre Berry joining us, former Arkansas Razorback. DeAndre, I don't know where you're from initially. Where's your where are you a native of?
I'm initially from Houston, Texas. Originally from Houston, Texas. So,
okay. But you've made your home in Northwest Arkansas for a while now, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I got here in '97 and never left.
What is it you're doing these days?
An opportunity. I'm sorry?
What is it you're doing these days?
Man, I work for Stryker. I work for a medical device company, and it's man, I tell you, it's definitely a gratifying field. It's a field that I have an opportunity to work with surgeons to literally change the lives of their patients, and man, I love it, and I don't think I'll do anything other than this. I really enjoy it.
We've tried to have a conversation in the last couple of days about the role of sports in how we're all able maybe to get along as a society and get over these the racism that I think this society faces on a day-to-day basis. And I wonder what it's like inside a locker room, and as you, an African-American man, you're talking about a kid in Brandon Burlsworth who is from Harrison, and I love Harrison, but there is a segment of folks there that, you'd be a little nervous being around. And obviously that wasn't anything that influenced him. He was just about, it seems to me, treating people with nothing but respect. What is the dynamic inside, when you were a player, a football locker room like? when it comes to dealing with issues of race? Is it a merit-based society?
Man, I'm glad you asked that question. It is there's so many layers to a locker room, and so many of them happen organically. So you come into a locker room, and you don't necessarily know the people that you're going to interact with, but you are forced to be around them in a small setting. And being around others in a small setting allows you to have a constructive conversation, whether you do it on purpose or not, to understand where the other person's coming from. And when you understand where the other person's coming from, it allows both sides to be heard. And I think when both sides are heard, that there's a certain level of calm that comes across, because the other person's really trying to understand where you come from, to understand how to to interact with you. Now, some of that's done on purpose, and some of that's done because, hey, coaches are telling you, man, if you don't get this done, you guys aren't going to see the field. You guys aren't going to win. So you have a common goal. And when both parties have a common goal, what you would find is that, man, you collaborate, you come together, and you have an understanding in order to get both sides to persevere. And that's the unique component of a locker room, that the settings is small enough to where you can guys actually have an honest conversation, gain perspective from each other, and understand what makes the other one successful and what makes the other one tick. And that's whether you're black, white, Hispanic. Man, we had them all. Country guys that have seen more killing that you and I would ever see. But those guys found a way to speak to each other, become extremely close to each other, and would do anything for each other. Man, I spoke to Jonathan Louis the other day about what's been going on, and man, we just had a great conversation, given that fact that we have two different perspectives, or we come from two different types of walks of life. And man, it was just really gratifying and understanding to speak to him, and him ask questions, me answer questions, and vice versa. And dude, it came because we had that bond of athletics. You can learn a lot, man, and we can learn a lot even today just by taking on that perspective of, man, I want to hear what the other person has to say, and I want to push the other person ahead. Man, I've never been in a situation where both sides wanted each other to succeed, both sides fail. I've never seen it.
This is
sports, you name it.
It is so well said, DeAndre, and I know that the virtual football camps are designed to teach football skills specifically and drills and things like that, but I also feel that there's a skill that these kids will need to learn about how to get along with people that are not like you. And if they're hearing it from people like yourself that I think they look up to and admire, I think it's going to hit home with them. I hope that message is delivered to these campers throughout the week, along with all of the football instruction.
Absolutely. And I think at such a young age, I mean, we do that camp from kids that are anywhere from 6 years old to 16 years old. And when you're just thrown into an environment, it's like, okay, man, this is just interaction. These people are going, and before you know it, man, you're next to a guy that you've never seen before doing up downs or doing some type of before you can even think about it, you're working together. And I think that's a key component, or again, to some of those intangibles that allows you to make a smooth transition into interacting with different cultures, interacting with different backgrounds, et cetera. And now you can actually sit down and have a conversation with them, and it just happens so naturally. And before you know it, man, you're gaining perspective, and you didn't even know it. I think that's important, of starting off at a young age as well.
DeAndre, it's a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your time, your thoughts, your openness, and also for teaching kids what you're doing all week long. Thanks for coming on today. Good luck, and we'll look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Thanks, DeAndre.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, guys. Y'all have a good one.
Absolutely. DeAndre Berry, former Razorback, and he is teaching at the virtual Brandon Burlsworth football camp. I believe you can still register. Just go to brandonburlsworth.org. They're just going to ask for your first and last name, your email address, and then get on Facebook Live at 5:30 for the broadcast. Should be a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to teach football skills, one skill for me for being on a team is the ability to get along with your teammates.
Absolutely.
And the only way you can do that is to come from a place of understanding. I also like